Here we are with my old friend, colleague, and Hall of Famer, and not only, also the author of the biggest greatness revisited, Pete Sampras book, which you will see, we will talk about. But first, we will talk about the draw of the US Open 2020 and the women's singles, and where I want to hear what Steve Flink has to say about, because it's a quite different tournament. We don't know if it would need an asterisk because there are 6 of the top 10 players missing. There are 2 of the top 10, Pliskova and Kenen, who didn't do well at all in Cincinnati. And there is this Serena Williams running for the 24th slam. Steve, what do you think about of all this? Do you think the US Open would need an asterisk to remember all of us that it's a different US Open than all, or not?
Probably yes, and especially for the women, as you're saying, Ubaldo, because so many missing. Men's field is stronger. We talk about that in another time. But with the women, have 6 of the top 10 missing. That's a big deal, and I think it will depend on the outcome. Depends on who wins the tournament, don't you think so? Like if Serena were to win the tournament, that maybe helps. Helps it for history. Not such a big asterisk because she's won 23 of them before this. So I think she would help them if she were. But if it's somebody else, if it's one of the women ranked between 20 and 30 in the world, that could be a problem.
Yeah. Well, I do agree. I do agree, and of course now we have to let's say make our prediction. Do you think Serena Williams has really a great chance? I don't say a chance for sure she has it, but a great chance to win it, because let's think about the 5 matches that she has played after the lockdown. The 5 matches she went always to the third round, to the third set, sorry.
Third
The
set,
third
that's
set,
right.
yes. Then she lost twice to Shelby Rogers, and then after taking chances with Roos, she lost again in Cincinnati by a player she should have beaten. No, you agree?
I agree. But that's why I don't know. That's why I don't know, Ubaldo, whether I would say her chances are great. We can never count her out. But we're talking about somebody who, in the previous 2 years, in 2018 and 19, was beaten in 4 major finals, 2 Wimbledon, 2 US, didn't win a set in those. She had a disappointing loss in Australia at the start of this year. And as you described, Ubaldo, what does it mean for Serena to go 3 sets in every match? And one of those was a recovery from 2-4 down in the final set against her sister Venus. Very gutsy, gritty win, but not a terribly impressive performance. And then she struggled. She should have lost her first match from Cincinnati in New York. We call it Cincinnati in New York because they're playing Cincinnati in New York.
Of course.
But she could easily have lost to Roos there, and then Sakari beat her in the next round. I haven't seen her raise her level. She's not playing badly, Ubaldo, but I'm not that impressed with what I saw in Kentucky and again in this tournament. She has to get to a higher level to win the Open, and she has to win 7 matches to do it. I'm not convinced that she will.
Yeah, I'm not convinced either. Honestly, if the Dutch girl Roos had served well
Yes.
when she was serving for the match, she would have won it. So
Yes, she came
honestly,
from 5-2 down. Roos came from 5-2 down in the third, wins 4 games in a row,
yeah.
gets two points away when she served for the match, but she was a little bit tight. Too bad, because she's a left-hander, good player. She should have actually completed that victory, and then Serena destroyed her in the tiebreak, didn't lose a point. But these are very uneven performances from Serena. And I think she has to be a bit worried about this. She also doesn't like spending as much time on the court as she's been had to do both in Kentucky and again in this tournament, this last tournament. So I don't think she's going into the U.S. Open brimming with confidence. I think she's hoping that she can find the old Serena and bring her back, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The Serena that could beat people badly on her best days. She's not beating people badly. She's squeaking through.
Yes, I do agree. I must say that if the Dutch girl uh, would have been a top 20 players in her career, probably she would have won it. She was never in the top 50. She had some good wins. I remember one at Roland Garros against the Clijsters, and when Roos won, I think it was 2012 or something like that. But Serena uh, is struggling too much in each match. She's not
Yes.
winning anything easy. And
No.
let's say the only advantage that she has compared to a Master 1000 or a normal tournament is that in a slam, she has one day off. So if she plays three sets, or let's say on a Monday, she will not play before Wednesday, and so that gives
Helps. That
her
helps. Yeah.
that helps. It's
But
not the same.
the problem, sorry for interrupting. The problem though is that yes, physically it helps, but if every match is tough, the other players notice it. They don't go on the court intimidated these days. They see that she's struggling. So I think that really hurts her in a lot of ways, that the players go into these matches with her with a different attitude than they used to. This is not the Serena of 2002 or the Serena of 2015 who almost won the Grand Slam before an Italian player spoiled it for her at the U.S. Open.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
the
thought you'd
let's
laugh. I thought you'd laugh. I said an Italian player spoiled
yeah.
her chances at the Grand Slam. I won't even mention that player's name.
Roberta Vinci. anyway, I do. No, you're right. I was just trying to concentrate on the draw and
Yeah.
checking her path, because
Yes.
uh, as I said, there was when before I mentioned one factor that could be in her favor, which is to play every other day. Now I
Yes.
want to mention another factor which instead doesn't go on her way, which is the missing crowd. She will not have the support of 20,000 Americans cheering for her. And okay, she lost to Vinci, and she lost also not only to Vinci when the whole stadium was with her. But this time, if she is in troubles, she will not have she will not have anyone almost to support her, which is a big disadvantage, I believe.
Ubaldo, I could not agree with you more. I couldn't agree more with what you just said, because I think if anybody feeds off the crowds, it's Serena. She's so used to the adrenaline rush she gets from this fervent crowd support, and especially in New York, they love her in New York.
Of
And
course.
I think it is difficult for her. And I've been watching these matches without the crowds, and she's doing a pretty good job of keeping herself motivated and fist pumping and trying to spur herself on. But it's not the same thing. If Federer had come to New York, I think he would have had the same shock to his system, because
Sure.
players like that are so accustomed to the audience lifting their spirits. And you're right, it's going to be hard for Serena. It's not going to be the normal U.S. Open feeling that she gets.
Well, we will talk later on another session about men, but maybe Novak Djokovic will like it, because he always set the crowd against him. So this time he has nothing to lose. But anyway, we'll talk about
Yeah,
men in a different
sure.
moment.
But
About
just a point about Serena, and to get back to the draw, there she has what looks like a really interesting potential third round match against Sloane Stevens.
Yeah, correct.
And Sloane won the U.S. Open 3 years ago unexpectedly, had a great run that fortnight and won the tournament. And she's been very disappointing recently, but that's the kind of match that Sloane would get excited about playing, and she doesn't mind. She's beaten Serena at a Grand Slam tournament before in Australia. She's not afraid of her, and I think that that could be a great match, to tell you the truth.
I think so too. I just wanted to add also that not only the missing crowd will be against Serena, but the missing crowd it's also could be also a problem for the umpiring, because also sometimes linesmen, umpire can be influenced a little bit by the atmosphere, by the support that Serena gets, while in a cold atmosphere, I mean cold even if it will be maybe hot, but I mean there will be less situation, in my opinion, that could influence also the umpiring situation, which would be normally in favor of Serena, because it's impossible to not feel that everyone is supporting one player without consequences.
No, it's going to be a big adjustment for her, Ubaldo. Not so much for some of the other players who don't care as much about the crowds.
Yeah,
Someone like Pliskova, I don't think Pliskova really cares about the crowd. She just goes out and does her job and does it
yeah.
very well. But I think for Serena, it's such an emotional connection she has with crowds, particularly American crowds. And it is hard when you've reached her level and you've scaled the heights and you've won more majors than Steffi Graf, and the only person ahead of you is Margaret Court. You've grown accustomed to a lot of enthusiasm from the crowd. She won't have that. She's had some practice with it now in Kentucky and in the Cincinnati event, but boy, it will be hard at the U.S. Open for her to find those emotions that she's used to experiencing.
Then I want to tell you, you are perfectly right to point out a possible third round Serena versus Sloane Stephens, who won the U.S. Open. So she has personality and background to be able to fight in a player like Serena, knowing that she is still young, while her opponent is paying off for because of the age. I mean, she's 39 practically now, no? So, but also the second round, let's say that Serena will beat Christiane the first round. I don't think she can lose to her. But then on the second round, there is either the Russian Gasparian or Monica Puig. Well, Monica Puig is a strange player, because the way I saw her playing at the Olympic Games in Brazil, I thought she was unbelievable. She was playing and beating everyone. I mean, one player stronger than the other, one match after the other, fighting. And so I don't know if it was the Olympic atmosphere, the Puerto Rican enthusiasm behind her, the support, but Puig is a player that has the potential to play well. Then most of the time she doesn't play well, but she wouldn't be intimidated, in my opinion, after what she showed in Rio de Janeiro. She wouldn't be intimidated, but she would be very excited to play Serena at the U.S. Open, if she will
No,
get there. If she will get there.
if you guess it, yeah, Ubaldo, it's a real problem when every word coming out of your mouth is as accurate as that. Because I agree with what you said. She's a perplexing player, Monica Puig. She should be better than she is, but on a given day, the fascinating thing about playing Serena, she could either go out and lose to Serena 6-2, 6-2,
Yeah.
or beat Serena 6-4 in the third.
Correct, correct.
Right?
That's why I say, well, would be an interesting. Maybe it will never happen, because Puig may lose to Gasparian, and
Right.
I wouldn't be
Right.
surprised. But then I would follow the match with Serena against Puig with a lot of interest, to be honest.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would too. I hope we get to see that, and I hope she wins that, and we get to see her play Sloane Stephens, because that would be a very enjoyable match.
Yeah,
You know,
and then
draw.
if let's say Serena would go through, just looking at the draw, and this we are talking about the the one half of the draw, no? Well, she could play later on, probably either Keys or Muguruza or against Sakari.
Yes, before Keys or Muguruza, she might have to first beat Sakari and get even for this latest loss. It's not going to be any easy path for her at all. And,
Yeah,
and and I hope for her sake, if she could win a couple of straight set matches, it might change her mindset a little bit and maybe sharpen her game up. Then it's different. But if she keeps going 3 sets like she has been, could be a lot of trouble. It would be fun to see her play Sakari again to see if she could turn things around immediately, and that could happen in the possibly in the round of 16.
yeah, yeah. And then on that
You
half,
you mentioned, sorry,
what
you
do you?
mentioned Muguruza and Keys, and they would possibly meet in the round of 16 with
Yeah,
the winner to play Serena. Which one would you rather see Serena play, Keys or Muguruza?
I would think that she has more chance with Keys than with Muguruza. Personally.
Okay,
I
yeah, I
think
agree.
if Muguruza was a runner-up, don't forget the Australian Open, and has won Wimbledon, has won Roland Garros, Muguruza wouldn't be intimidated at all. Keys, in a way, she was brought up and seeing Serena Williams as an idol, as a almost an unbeatable champion. So for Keith would be, in my opinion, more difficult.
Agree with
Uh,
that.
it's also true that Muguruza, we know nothing about her form because we haven't seen her playing for 6 months. So we
Yeah,
have no.
it's true. It's true. That's the problem for a lot of them is that because of the pandemic, nobody is really that as well prepared as they'd like to be. But Ubaldo, let's just talk a little bit about the bottom half of that draw,
Yeah.
where we have Kenin who's seeded 2, and she should play against Sabalenka in the quarterfinals if they both get through. What do you think about that potential matchup?
You're talking about which match? Kenan. Well, Kenan has to doesn't have an easy.
No, no, but I'm saying let's assume that maybe Kenin does get through the early rounds. I think she will. She starts with Rick Meyer, then maybe Zavana Reva or Kanepi.
Well,
She
but
has some.
there is Jabeur, which is not bad. Jabeur is a
Yeah,
strong. She
yeah,
has a lot of variety, and in my opinion, a player with a lot of variety may create problems to
she
Kenan.
could. She could. But if all went according to plan, if the seeding held up, we would have Kenin against Sabalenka, which I find would be a very good quarterfinal. How would you see that one coming out? I might give Kenin the slight edge to win that match, very slight.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yes, it's not easy to be honest, because there is also you're also forgetting Kvitova. That I never understand why Kvitova loses, because I always think that Kvitova is such a talent that if she finds the right week, the good week, she can go
Yeah, but
anywhere. Sabalenka is very
Aldo,
strong.
just a brief point. Sorry, Kvitova's on the other half though. She's at the bottom of the top half of the draw. Kvitova
Uh,
would.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Right.
You're right. I made a mistake because I
Yeah.
printed the draw, and and there
Yeah.
was a problem. I couldn't print that all. Yeah, no, you're
Yeah.
right. No, well, Sabalenka is. He's a strong player. I mean, even physically, he's frightening you because he's such, shoulders, powerful, and so. But these other girls, uh, uh, to me, they don't seem consistent enough to predict them going through too many rounds. Then maybe they will do it. But for instance, I would say that Joanna Conta, for instance, is a player that is more consistent than others.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
I agree. I agree.
Conta is capable to to keep the predictions, to all the predictions more than others. While the other girls, maybe because they are younger, they can do very well one day and very bad the next day. So, but I agree that of course Sabalenka is a potential opponent in that half of the draw. I do agree. And what?
So Aldo, let me ask you this then, because we've talked about a lot of players. And by the way, I do agree with you about Joanna Konta, a little more reliable than some of the others. Smart player, good match player, good all-around game. I like the way she plays. But let's just look at that half overall and see if we can each pick which woman will get to the final from the bottom half of the draw. Will it be Serena? Will it be Kenin? Will it be Sabalenka? Will it be Muguruza? Who is your pick to come through to the final from that half of the draw, if you had to do it right now?
Maybe I would probably think Muguruza and perhaps hmm,
You know what? It's a very difficult call, I think.
yeah,
I
it
think it's a
is.
very difficult call because I could see Muguruza possibly, if she's in form, getting to the final. I could see Serena squeezing through to the final. I could see Kenin maybe coming out of her slump. She hasn't played well lately, but she hasn't played much, period. But she's great on hard courts, as she showed in Australia. So I could see her, and I could see Sabalenka. I could see 4 or 5 players having a good chance to make the final from that half.
Well, once we say that 6 of the top 10 are
Yeah,
out of the tournament,
right.
the, so many have a chance. I mean, that's for sure.
So Ubaldo, can we take a let's go up to the top half of the draw now and talk about Pliskova's half of the draw.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to
All right.
Pliskova.
So,
Let-
she might have to play Jennifer Brady in the third
Yeah.
round, the young American. Brady's seeded 28, but she's a better player than that. And then she might have to play either Kerber or Allison Risk. One or the other would be in the round of 16, and then potentially play Petra Martic in the quarterfinals. What do
Yeah.
you think of?
Don't forget Garcia, because Garcia is
Yeah,
also the French girl. She was in the last 8. 2 years ago, she made she qualified for Singapore WTA finals, and
yeah, she's unseeded, but she could come out of Pliskova's section. You're right. She might get out of there. She's dangerous. She's very
she
dangerous.
she she in Cincinnati she seemed to me to be in better shape than Pliskova.
Yeah, she did. She did. So you never know. There's a potential for Pliskova to go out early if that were to happen. And
Yeah,
then, but you still would have Brady. You still have Brady in there, who is a very improved player, and that's why she's in the top 30 now.
yeah,
And then we
yeah.
don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect from Kerber, Ubaldo. Talk about somebody you think is a great player. I mean, Kerber has won Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, the Australian Open. She's won 3 of the 4 Grand Slam tournaments,
Yeah.
and yet she could lose in the first round,
No, you're
right?
right. You're right. You're right. Kerber, she has to play Tomljanovic,
Yeah, right,
uh,
right.
who is, as a gossip writer as you are, you know for sure that she is the fiance of Matteo Berrettini. I guess
Well,
you have written a lot of gossip columns recently.
you know what, Ubaldo? I can't write the gossip columns as well as you, and you just proved it. You're way ahead of me. I didn't know that information, but I'm glad to have
Anyway,
it.
anyway, so uh, well, Osaka, whatever will be the reaction to what happened in Cincinnati and all the fuss that was made about her situation, her declaration. I mean, Osaka, I
Yeah,
think she has to be considered a, 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 po- a potential finalist at least of the U.S. Open.
I'm glad you said,
If not the
Ubaldo.
winner.
I'm glad. Yeah, I was glad you said at least. I agree with the at least because in the end, she's actually my pick to win the tournament. I think she, as you know, she won it 2 years ago in the controversial match with Serena when Serena had all those problems with the umpire and the referee. And
Yeah.
then she went on and won the Australian at the start of the next year. She has been a little up and down since, but I think she's finding herself now. I think she's ready to make a real go of it in New York. And if I had to pick one player to win this tournament, I'm going with her.
Yeah, I would say me too, even if when I saw her in Cincinnati playing Kontaveit, and she was down one set and almost two breaks down in the second set, I thought, oh, what happened to her? But then all what happens afterwards showed to me that probably she had something else in her head, in her mind. And so if she will be concentrated enough and determined, and if she will pass, let's say, the first matches, which are not so difficult because first she has the Japanese doi, then okay, Georgie could be dangerous, but Georgie, nobody of us has seen her anymore playing in Italy or anywhere else.
No, the only place that Georgie's been seen is on motorbikes with certain Italian journalists. That's all
Yeah,
I'll say.
yeah, but that was years ago when she was in better shape.
No, I agree. So what right now? How do you feel she's playing right now, Ubaldo? Seriously.
No, I think Osaka is playing. No, Georgia, I have
Oh,
no
I mean,
idea. Georgia, I have no idea because I haven't seen
okay,
her playing. We didn't
okay,
even know. We didn't even know if she had left Italy to go to United States, and we were
okay.
surprised to have no idea. No Italian journalist knew anything about her. There was Tatiana Garbin, the captain of the Italian Fed Cup, who left Italy to go to New York. So we expect that the two Italians, Jasmine Paolini and Camilla Giorgi, will be in New York. But if it wasn't for that news, we wouldn't know it. Let's going back to Osaka. I must say that there is in air draw there is also a very interesting first round, Sevastova and Coco Gauff.
Yes, yes.
Which I think many people will like to see because Gauff was pretty disappointing in Cincinnati, and
Yeah, she was. She was. She also lost to Sakari. Yeah, she didn't play well, but
yeah,
but she'll bounce back. I don't think a loss like that is going to stay with her for very long. But it is a tough start for her to play Sevastova, who's seeded number 31.
yeah,
So that's not an easy first round. So Coco is fully capable of winning that match, but I think it'll be a close one, very
yeah,
close.
yeah. And then now in this part of the draw, as I was mentioning before, there is Kvitova, who is
Yeah,
an
yeah.
outsider, let's say, but she's an outsider who can always be playing better than a seed.
Yes, that's right. And if she plays really well and Osaka does, they could come out to a quarter. They could play in the quarters, which could be a great match if it
Yeah.
happens.
Listen, Steve, I think we have more or less said everything about the women's singles. There are a lot of Americans this time, also because there were many Europeans who decided not to go, not to come to New York. So, which one out of the most famous American girls would you see capable of some exploit or exploit, as you would say?
Oh, exploits. Yeah. Well, I don't, that's tough to say right now. Normally, I would have thought I would automatically say Serena, but I'm not so sure right now after what I've seen these last two tournaments. So I think there's a bunch of them. I think Brady, as I mentioned Brady earlier, I think she's a very capable player. And
What about Riske?
she's a great competitor. She's the best competitor of the group by far. I think there are others who might be better players, but no one competes better than her. And she, I could see her having a good run here as well. I don't see any of them winning the tournament, but they can all do well in New York. Allison Risk is a very good match player.
And Taylor Townsend, because in Wimbledon she impressed everyone. No, I mean in Wimbledon in Australia. Yeah, sorry, where was it? She
Well, last year's Open,
yeah,
that match with Halep,
yeah,
that was a great match for her.
Yeah,
So, Taylor can really serve in volley. I mean, and that
yeah.
was a performance against Simona. Like, obviously, Simona's not coming this year, but Taylor Townsend, I don't necessarily know what to expect from her. She
Mm.
can play a match like that, or she can implode a little bit because the ground strokes are not that great. It's the serve and the attacking game and the skill on the volley, but her ground strokes can sometimes go awry. A little
Yeah.
bit like yours did back in the mid 70s.
Like who?
Like yours in the mid 70s.
Ah,
Occasionally,
myself. Okay, like me. Okay, I thought you were going to say like Pete Sampras because
no, I would
this
never
is
say that about him.
because okay, I want to mention again the book you wrote about Pete Sampras, the book which is coming out. You should tell our viewers how to get it, where to buy it, and how much does it cost. I know nothing because you were so nice to send it to me freely. So
Well,
I saved my money. I saved my money, and
you did.
I also have I don't know if you can see it, a dedication to Ubaldo, my great friend. We have had a last, what is it? Last
A blast. A blast.
so long as tennis observers. Thanks for all the authors and the sharing of ideas. All the best, Steve Flink. So uh, tell to the viewers what they have to do.
Well, I think the easiest, they go online, Ubaldo. I think the easiest is almost always to go to Amazon.com because they carry the book and it's doing very well on Amazon, I'm told, which I'm very
Okay.
happy to hear. And that it will officially be coming out September 1st. So we're only about a week away from the release date. So anybody who wanted to order the book now would be able to get it pretty quickly. And it's called Pete Sampras Greatness Revisited because
Yeah.
obviously we're going back to his era of the 90s and I'm looking back on his great matches and getting all the other players to comment, not just Pete. He spoke to me for many hours, but Pat Rafter and Stefan Edberg and Mats Wielander and Courier Chang and Novak Djokovic talks about idolizing Pete as a boy. So there's a lot of players weighing in about Pete. I think the fans will have fun to hear what everybody says about Pete Sampras and what Pete Sampras says about himself.
Yeah, yeah, I read it, and of course, there are the 14 slams that he won, 14 slams out of 18 finals, which is a great record because, I mean, he lost only 4 finals. And let's say that the only weakness was probably the Roland Garros, the clay court,
Yes.
but in the in the other slams we are talking now about the U.S. Open, and he won 5 U.S. Open, no, 7 Wimbledon, 5 U.S. Open, 2 Australian Open. So we are talking really about the greatest. And this 14th Slam was the U.S. Open, when nobody expected him almost anymore to win it, and especially I read Greg Ruseski was saying, "Oh, he beat me, but he was not playing so well. He's not. I don't think we will go through." And then I saw that you interviewed Ruseski,
Did.
and
I did.
he said that of course he had said that in the heat of the moment, but few years later he probably wouldn't have said the same thing, even if at that time he was not the only one to think like that.
No, that's true. That's true. But I think what Rosetsky said that was also true, and you're talking about the 2002 U.S. Open, which was
Yeah,
Sampras's last event. He won his last tournament, beat Agassi in the finals. But Rosetsky took him to 5 sets, Ubaldo. And I think Rosetsky's point to me was that he thought he sharpened Pete's game in a way, that it was such a close match. And then after that, Pete got much better after that. And he thought in a way that's what it was more important than anything that he might have said about him. We'll never know, but there's no doubt that Sampras got much better because he went from that match with Rosetsky to beating Tommy Haas in 4 sets, Andy Roddick in straight sets, Shalkin in the semis, Agassi in the finals. It was a great run. 5 matches in 7 days that second week of the U.S. Open, and he won his 14th major and his 5th U.S. Open. And you were there to see almost every point of it, right, Ubaldo?
well, next to you, as usual.
Next to me. Right. Right.
I usually like to come and watch the matches next to you because I try to explain what happens. So in case you don't understand, you know. Anyway, listen, thanks a lot, Steve, and we will have other chances to talk about your book, and I hope everyone will go and buy it because I really think it's a great book. You can find everything about Sampras, what every player thinks about him. I would say, but I will. That Lendl was right when he said that Sampras has not been lucky to be followed by Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer because some people may have forgotten that he won 14 slams, and which was quite exceptional, and we were thinking that nobody would have beaten that record. And in the 90s, he was by far the best player of his era.
Ubaldo Lendl said it beautifully, and I think he's right. He said Pete would have been the man, as he said, for many, many decades, maybe if we hadn't had three guys come along so quickly in his footsteps. But that's the reason that I wrote the book, Ubaldo. I didn't want people to forget how great Sampras was in his time, or to think that he couldn't have done well against Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, because I really believe he would have. We can talk about that another time. Ubaldo, it's been great coming on the show with you again. As always, I learn something every time I talk to you.
I'm blushing. I'm blushing. Thanks a lot. Ciao, Steve. My old friend, colleague, Hall of Famer, and best writer on Pete Sampras' book and Greatness Revisited. Let's see if I'm able. I don't know.